Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. Today, we're going to go ahead and cover this topic right here. I want to look at how fat acceptance activists define themselves and define the movement, especially within a written context, because most of the time on this channel and in general, we tend to look at the overall like soundbite and short form content, but I find it interesting when they have to kind of actually talk about what they believe and actually talk about things in a longer form. Now, yes, we can of course look at many different activists and how they describe it to get a clearer picture, but as a lot of us do know in the anti-FA space, a lot of the movement is basically the same talking points over and over again from different people. So it's kind of like if you read one, you read a lot. So let's go through this together. I am really in kind of a research phase right now where I'm just looking at it on a bigger picture. So let's do this. This is from June 24th, 2019 by Yvette Dion. Let's see what they have to say. Sizeism is everywhere in our culture, from the workplace to the playground. It's time to change that. Fat shaming is stitched into the fabric of American culture. In fact, it's so embedded in our everyday lives that we don't often recognize when we're perpetuating fat phobia or the act of discriminating against someone because of the size of their body. Okay, so already we're starting pretty strong. So, fat acceptance is kind of it's a little bit scammy to say that all of society is a certain way right off the bat. As I've described many times on this channel, American culture is not a monolith. So you can't say like things are really different in Chicago versus, Mobile, Alabama. Like it's very different. You can't speak about America that way. You have to be more localized to really talk about culture within America because it's just such a big place. So already we're starting with a bit of a false premise here. Not to mention, different ethnic groups or other versions of identity and subcultures like gay culture or this or that. They're all going to be different from what is considered mainstream American culture, which again is different based on state to state, city to city. So it's a weird thing to talk about in regards to fat shaming in that way. In my opinion, it just doesn't really add up. It really depends on your context, how much fat shame you're going to get. Anyways, I also am not a fan of the we don't recognize when we're perpetuating fat phobia or whatever. It's very presumptuous to assert that you know more about somebody else than they know about themselves, especially a stranger or somebody you have no clue of. So, but we're seeing they're framing it this way. So they're framing it with an assertion about reality, an assertion about culture, and an assertion about you. That's how it starts, is you could be this problem. Let's do this chain email logic. Can you be the solution? Right? It's funny how much they criticize like beauty campaigns and stuff because they do the same thing. Instead of an ad calling you ugly, they're an ad calling you fat phobic. So it's very interesting. For instance, Michigan is the only state that has passed a law that forbids employers from penalizing fat people in the workplace, which means that in 49 states, people of size can be fired, denied promotions, and paid less than their straight-sized counterparts. I would question how often that actually occurs. I don't know if this person is aware, but there's a huge proportion of the population in the United States that is obese and overweight, especially overweight. I mean, it's really high. Obese, it's like almost half, if not half. I don't think that every company in the country can afford to just fire everybody that's fat. It's just, again, I don't think this is realistic at all. While children are often taught to use the golden rule to guide their interactions with all people, especially those who are different from they, unfortunately, treating others as we'd like to be treated isn't considered when legislators are passing the laws that govern our lives. We can see how that lack of regulation leads to discrimination. Fat applicants are less likely to be hired than straight-sized applicants because hiring managers tend to associate fatness with laziness, according to a 2017 study conducted by Fairy God Boss. I mean, really? Fairy God Boss? That's pretty cheesy. But okay, I mean, it's not like it's hard to take seriously. We can also see it in the fact that fat employees earn $1.25 less per hour than straight-size employees, which can lead to a loss of $100,000 over the course of a career. Fat phobia doesn't just appear in the workplace either. In 2003, researchers found that more than 50% of the primary care physicians they surveyed viewed obese patients as awkward, unattractive, ugly, and non-compliant. Oh my God. Sorry. And the majority of these doctors view obesity as largely a behavioral problem and share our broader society's negative stereotypes about the personal attributes of obese persons. So this is the thing. I don't think they ever consider why people may have those views. I know that's really harsh to say. Like, I feel like I'm going to say something really, really, really harsh. But if you are awkward, you might just be awkward, and if people associate with fat people on a regular basis, especially like a physician, which obviously a lot of fat people go to the doctor a lot more often, they might get that impression because it is awkward a lot of the time. I don't know. Like, I don't think they understand how, like, I don't know. Something like that is just... Being fat is incredibly awkward, just all the time. It's a very awkward thing on a day-by-day basis. Again, I think I'm still waiting for them to define fat acceptance. Like, they're just talking about all the talking points here. But unattractive and ugly are two of the same words, so I don't know. And it's also very subjective, so it's a weird thing to ask somebody. Non-compliant, I think I could understand that. I think it's a lot of doctors, they give advice that is unattainable and ridiculous. So, of course, people are going to be non-compliant. People have the most insane takes in regards to losing weight, and they say the most insane things. And as a fat person, you're just expected to listen, because if you knew, you wouldn't be fat anymore. But a lot of people have never been fat. They've never lost the weight. They don't understand anything. They don't understand how things work in reality or in a actual situation where it can actually make sense. So that part, I could see them seeing it as non-compliant. But again, I think it's important to look at the time. That's 2003. I also think it's important to look at what is going on around it, right? You can't take a study as gospel. You have to look at the study and think about what is going on around this. And again, why were they even asking this? That's stupid. Anyways, the majority of these doctors view obesity as largely a behavioral problem and share our broader society's negative stereotypes about the personal attributes of obese persons. So the thing is, there is a behavioral aspect of obesity. I understand that in today's day and age, in 2023, it's all about we don't ever have any behavioral responsibility, or anything behavioral we do doesn't affect obesity whatsoever. That is insane to me as somebody who has lost 86 pounds of fat since July of 2022. I have changed my behaviors and my weight has changed. So it is definitely in part a behavioral issue. Absolutely. And to deny that is to deny reality. So that's hard. Like, of course, they view it as that because there is a huge part of that. I do agree that there are some systemic issues behind obesity because we see the issue getting bigger and bigger, pun intended, over time. So if you get to the point where almost everybody is obese, obviously there is something systemic occurring, because that's when it's a little bit less of a behavioral problem, which I think it is changing and getting worse. While we know that fat people are stigmatized in every area of their lives, it holds a different weight when doctors, not fashion designers or magazine editors, have a negative view of people of size. Dr. Lilia, I don't know how to pronounce the name, Grow, told Healthline that doctors often fail to provide adequate and timely diagnosis and treatment due to all kinds of assumptions, which affects patients along the full weight spectrum. These biases can have a deadly impact on fat people. Patients of size are less likely to seek medical care because they're afraid of being fat shamed by their doctors. This in turn can lead to diseases such as ovarian cancer being caught later and in more advanced stages. Okay, the thing is, your doctor is not a therapist. A doctor is not there to make you feel better. A doctor is there to help with a specific issue. You need to treat a doctor like you would treat somebody who you're going, like a mechanic for your car. You need to be skeptical of what doctors say. You need to find the right doctor. And I think we should have transparent pricing in the US, which we don't, which I think is horrible. And I think that that's completely horrible and that needs to change, because doctors should have to compete and prices should have to be lower because they would have to compete. The way it is now is insane. Imagine going to a mechanic and you can't ever know how much it's going to cost before you go. It's just total robbery. But anyways, you need to have a skepticism and you need to sometimes get a second opinion, take an active role in your health. A doctor is not your robot god that can, type your symptoms into an algorithm and then solve all your problems. That's just not the way that doctors are. And so I think it's stupid to hold doctors to this like godlike status, which a lot of fat acceptance people do. It's very interesting to me. This in turn can lead to diseases such as that. It can also result in fat patients being misdiagnosed. Yes, but there are many thin people who are also misdiagnosed or who don't get diagnoses for years. I mean, this is so dumb. Can we please not just say that this is a fat issue? There's a lot of people that struggle with this. Again, I think it's caused by this attitude of doctors can do no wrong. I must trust everything a doctor says no matter what. I don't think that that's right. If you know something's wrong and they're not listening, then you need to kind of go somewhere else. I mean, this happens to a lot of people. It is what it is. There are bad doctors. It can also result in fat patients being misdiagnosed, blah, 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 as writer Rebecca Hiles, explained in Cosmopolitan in April 2018. For 5 years, she experienced coughing fits that caused her to have spasms and rely on adult diapers. Doctors told her that losing weight would alleviate her symptoms, but after a coughing fit landed her in the emergency room, she learned that she had a tumor in a bronchial tube. Her entire left lung had to be removed. No matter where fat people go, schools, workplaces, and courtrooms, we face being ostracized and discriminated against. And that's the reason why fat acceptance activists have been fighting since the 60s to make America's policies more inclusive of people of size. Okay. I mean, I don't know the optics of that. How much time is it going to take, right? Maybe there isn't a point to what you're saying. It's not really adding up. It's a long time to have made zero progress, according to you. Blah, blah. Okay, fat acceptance is believing that bodies come in all shapes and sizes and that all bodies have equal value. Okay. So value is an interesting word. I think it's a very interestingly capitalist, coming from a lot of people who are more communist. Value, I think, is important to not necessarily tie to people's bodies. Again, I'm not a fan of things like prostitution and stuff like that. I think it's toxic to view bodies as a commodity. So I find it very odd that they would use that word. In terms of things like equal in terms of attractiveness or something like that, you can never have that. Attractiveness is extremely subjective. In terms of, I don't know, everything else, it's, I think you just have to, it depends on what you're saying. I don't know. I don't think anybody's body is worth a dollar value. So maybe they need better language because I'm not sure what they're talking about. Fat activism is a political movement that advocates for the rights and dignity of fat people. She concluded, just as the civil rights movement has an extensive history that exceeds what we're taught in school, the fat acceptance movement has tangible roots that we should all be learning. Okay, so every time they have to bring up something else. So they have to bring the civil rights movement in to it. So apparently fat activism is a civil rights issue. What rights are you being denied? I think it's really important to ask that question. I haven't heard anything that has to do with rights. It has to, all they've mentioned is people don't like me because I'm fat, or people have assumptions because I'm fat. That's not a civil rights issue. Civil rights is like actual rights. Things like marriage equality, things like being able to buy a house or have your own bank account or not. Things like being able to marry somebody of a different race, right? These are like civil rights. That's all that stuff, okay? You don't have the right for everybody to like you or everybody to find you attractive. That's not a right. And even when it comes to healthcare, that depends on the person. It's very debatable. There are a lot of people that say it is a right, but there are a lot of people that say you can't force labor. You can't force somebody to give you healthcare. So it really depends. You know, you need to like really think about what you're doing, but you certainly and apparently don't have a right to good healthcare because you can go to a really bad doctor that doesn't help you at all. So it's like, I don't know, you know, just think about it, you know. Okay. Just as the civil rights movement has blah, blah, blah. Okay. It all began in 1967 when MBAI radio personality Steve Post decided to host a fat-in in Central Park because he, as a 210-pound man, faced size discrimination and wanted to protest discrimination against fat people. While there has been some debate about Post's intention for organizing a fat-in, what's clear is that it was the first event of its kind. We want to show we feel happy, not guilty. That's why we're here. Okay, so I just want to point out that a lot of things haven't changed at all. Post told the New York Times at the time, this opened the door for more radical activism that focused intensely on making the world more equitable for fat people. Okay, interesting word choice again. Equitable. What does that mean? Is equity equality of opportunity or equality of outcome? Equitable is a communist term. It has to do with equality of outcome, which again, you're not going to sell me on that, you know. During this time, activists were focused on an array of social issues, including the Vietnam War, sexism, and racism. So the fight to end sizeism didn't gain the national attention it deserved. But that didn't stop fat acceptance activists from bringing awareness. While it seemed that fat phobia wouldn't be as big of a priority as ending an international war or upending segregation, the social and political climate provided fertile ground for all marginalized people, including fat people, to fight for equality. Again, I need to know what you mean by equality. They're not really, they just invoke these words. They don't actually say what it means. What is equality to you? What are you fighting for? You're not telling me. So I think what I'm seeing here is there isn't really answers. It's a lot of talking about other movements and a lot of subtle cues into communistic propaganda, basically, is what I'm seeing in this. 2 years after the Central Park fat and writer, blah, 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 I don't care about their names, and activist Bill Fabre formed the National Association to Advance Fat Acceptance with the goal of ending fat-phobic messages in media and making the world safer for people of size. How would it be safer? Right? I think we need to actually talk about real, tangible things. What is fat-phobic messages? I need examples, right? That would have really helped this article if you would have actually provided examples of what you're talking about. But you just say this and it's very vague. So what does safer mean, and what is a fat-phobic message in media? Please share what you're talking about. For the past 50 years, the association has lobbied for legislation, staged plus-size fashion shows, called out media organizations that offer fat-phobic advertising and messaging, and worked to fulfill its mission, especially as more and more Americans gain weight. It's more important than ever to have laws that protect people of size from discrimination because 7 in 10 Americans are now classified as overweight. Fat acceptance activists were also integral to getting Michigan to pass that size discrimination law, forcing the fashion industry to be more inclusive of different bodies, and taking on the billion-dollar dieting industry that often tells people that they're flawed and that products can make them perfect. For instance, in 1993, Bonnie Cook sued the LAD Center, a facility for people with disabilities in Rhode Island, for discriminating against her in the hiring process. She claimed the refusal to hire her because of her weight violated the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, a law that is usually used to prove discrimination against people with disabilities. Okay, so they've been using disability as a comparison forever. Obesity on its own is not a disability, unless if it gets so out of control that you can no longer walk or no longer stand. But just being obese is not a disability. So I think we have some judges that were shaky there. It's not the same. She was awarded $100,000 in damages, and the LAD Center was ordered to hire her. How weird. You don't want to work somewhere that you were ordered to hire? Oh gosh, that's so scarring. It was a major victory for fat activists who were lobbying for legislation to protect fat people from weight-based discrimination. See, the thing is, though, you can find a different job. I wouldn't want to work somewhere where they were forced to hire me. That's really weird. That would be very uncomfortable. That paved the way for Michigan's law and shifted how employers treated fat people. Fat acceptance activists and bloggers have also worked extensively to make the fashion industry more inclusive of different bodies, including transgender and disabled bodies. Again, they always have to hold on to other things. It can't just be about them. It has to be about this. But it's only whenever it's used for their agenda or to kind of compare it. Like I've said many times, being obese is not the same as being transgender. Being obese is not the same as being disabled. It's not similar at all. But they can't have it be just what it is because it doesn't stand on its own. So they have to latch on to other stuff. While fashion has long been an exclusive industry that caters to thin white women, in the last several years, designers, modeling agencies, and fashion magazines have begun offering more opportunities to underrepresented communities. During New York Fashion Week Spring 2019 showings, 49 plus-size models walked in 12 shows, which is a vast improvement from the 27 models of size who walked in the Fall 2018 shows and the 34 who walked in Fashion Week Spring 2018 presentations. It's kind of like, I don't know. I'm just going to say, as a fat person, I don't think this affects me at all. I just don't. This affects very specific people who care deeply about fashion, who are fat. And I just don't care that much, honestly. So this doesn't improve my life at all. I don't understand how this is any kind of activism. This is like one of the most superficial and stupid things I've ever heard as an example of civil rights. I mean, really? Really? And again, they already had people there. There were already 27 people. So it's not like it broke ground. It was the first time somebody ever went. It's like you already had people there. It's just weird. Do they just want everybody to be or what? It's weird. Plus size models, including Ashley Graham and Tess Holliday, are also appearing on magazine covers and in fashion campaigns. And Graham even received her own Barbie in 2016. Again, for people who hate capitalism, these are very capitalistic things to care about. You know, I am into capitalism myself, but I'm not that obsessed with it. This is a bit obsessive for my take. I mean, Barbie, come on. Are you kidding me? Okay. Yet the goals of fat acceptance are still misunderstood. Yeah, I wonder why. Even in this article, I still don't understand. This is very unclear. In every way, fat acceptance is a movement designed to promote dignity so that people of size have equal access to opportunities. Okay, that's fine. But that doesn't mean that you're going to have equal access to outcomes, which would be equity, which would be communism. This is more of what I would support, an equal access to an opportunity. Despite this clear definition, fat acceptance is woefully misunderstood. It's not clear. Because in this whole article, if you would have maybe started with this, maybe it would have been clearer. But again, you have to provide examples so that people can understand what you're saying. And I'm not getting anything. I'm getting, we want to force people to hire you. We want to complain about healthcare, which is fine, but that isn't an exclusively fat issue. We want to compare it to trans and disability. It's not the same. We want to not talk about how there's any behavioral influences on weight at all. That's what I've gotten from this article. So it's not clear. So I'm still not understanding. Is it just you want everybody to like you or what? You want to be in a fashion magazine and have a Barbie made out of you? I mean, you cannot buy self-esteem. You can't do that kind of stuff. Like, again, I don't know. These people make me feel like I'm not nearly as capitalistic as they are, I guess, because I can see like certain things are not for sale, like our body. I don't think your body should be for sale. I don't think your self-esteem can be for sale. Like, it's just crazy to me. But that's all I'm getting from this. It's like a weird hodgepodge of extreme capitalism and communist talking points. It's very weird. Very confusing. I understand why pretty much all of us look at this movement and are like, what the hell? Anyways, in every way, fat acceptance is a movement designed to promote dignity. Okay, what does that mean? Say what you mean. Promote dignity. This is very vague. So that people of size have equal access to opportunities. Despite this clear definition, fat acceptance is woefully misunderstood. It's not clear. That's why. This is best exemplified in a 2018 April column published in The Guardian by writer Lizzie Cernick. Gosh, this writer, it's like, do you have any of your own thoughts? Or are you just going to cite everybody else? Fronted by plus-size models and social media influencers, the fat acceptance movement aims to normalize obesity, letting everyone know that it's time to be fat, or that it's fine to be fat. Okay. Normalizing obesity. Okay, so that's the goal. That is a clear thing. That's clear. So that's when we need to look at, is that a good thing or not? Which obviously all of us on the anti-FA from all across the political spectrum and everywhere, and the vast majority of people in the vast majority of cultures for all time, including today, we would say that isn't a good thing. I will say that as an obese person, it is not good to normalize obesity because the health implications are horrific if we were to normalize obesity. That is society destroying. That is the type of thing that can really harm us in ways that we might not ever recover from. So, but good to know that this is the actual goal. Okay, so let's save that. This is the first clear thing in this whole article. Okay. With terms such as straight size and fat pride proliferating, some influential figures are now even likening the valid concerns of health officials to hate crimes. Oh my gosh. Yeah, because you cheapen everything. Cheapening everything. Glorifying obesity is a common misconception associated with fat acceptance. Okay, you're normalizing obesity. It's very similar. Because in order to normalize something that's very bad, you have to glorify it. So if we look at something like drug use, in order to normalize something like that, especially recreationally, you have to glorify it. You have to make it seem cool. You have to, because if you just show an addict on the street standing like a zombie, like this, that's not going to normalize something like that. So when it comes to obesity, if you just show people that are really fat, that are out of breath, that are struggling to go up a flight of stairs, that's not going to normalize obesity, because reality shows that it's not good. So in order to normalize it, you have to glorify it. You have to make it seem better than it is. We've all seen the fat acceptance TikTok montages with music and smiles on their face as they hide their deep scars and psych medication that they will talk about in the next TikTok. It's like, it's all lies. Anyways, asking for equality is not the same as glorifying obesity, as writer Rachel Hampton explains in a scathing rebuke published in Slate. Of course, fat people aren't trying to encourage more people to become fat. There are actually some people that do, which maybe we should do a TikTok video on that, because there are actual people that do. So that's actually false. They're trying to live a life with dignity. I don't know, like, that's not something you can get from somebody else. Like, you just, because, like, you can't look at somebody else for acceptance to live a life of dignity. Dignity is very much an internal thing. You can't get dignity from another person. It just doesn't work. If you don't have any self-esteem or any self-love or anything like that within yourself, you're not going to live a life of dignity. It's just like, I don't know what to tell you. You know, I don't. If somebody else values you, there have been so many people in my life, and even like my past relationships and stuff, where it's like, I really valued that person, and I am so, like, to this day I still see them as such a valuable person, but no matter how much I value that person or see how good they are, if they can't see it themselves, it doesn't matter. It's an endless futile battle, and it's really sad. But again, you can't buy yourself into a life with dignity, and you can't get it from someone else. It just doesn't work that way. So again, this is like a weird self-esteem movement or something. Again, we're clouding it again. It's confusing. If you've never been fat, it's hard to understand the various ways in which your body stops becoming your own once you reach a certain weight. I know, but what if people have never been thin, or they haven't been thin for a very long time and they don't remember? So it's like, how do you know that you would feel that way if you were thin still or not? How do you know a thin person hasn't felt it? How do you know this? How do you know that? Right? It goes both ways. I don't know. It's a weird thing to say to me. I think they really believe that people cannot change, like that you can't go from being thin to fat or fat to thin, and that's not true. You can. You can absolutely find it. You can figure it out. If you really want to experience both sides of something, then you can. In this regard, you absolutely can. So it's weird for them to talk about it that way. Like, I will never know what it's like to actually be a woman. I will never have a period. I will never actually give birth or get pregnant or feel the same sense of vulnerability that women feel. I will never have been raised with the pressures that women have been raised with, because I can't go back in time and become a biological woman. That doesn't exist. So with that, yes, the same is true with biological women. They can never understand what it's like to be a man, to grow up as a man, to be raised this way or that way. It's like a straight person. They cannot understand completely my experiences as a gay man. A straight man cannot understand the pressures, the dynamics, these types of things that I go through, especially as a feminine gay man, where a lot of times my role in society is like a woman, but I'm not a woman, and I wouldn't say I am, you know? So it's like, when you look at stuff like that kind of stuff, yeah, you can't really change it, right? It's the same thing with race. Like, I can never completely understand what it's like to grow up as a Black person in America, or a Black person cannot understand what it's like to grow up as a white person in America. Like, you don't, those kind of things cannot change. So while we can of course relate to each other, there's always a human element, and I believe wholeheartedly that we are more similar than we are different. There's still certain things that you can't ever really experience. But when it comes to fatness, you can. If you want to know what it's like to be 400 pounds, you can gain the weight. If you want to know what it's like to be thin, you can lose the weight. It's just not the same. It isn't the same at all. But I think that they keep trying to act like it is. It's not. So this does not apply. It just doesn't. What I will say, if you've never been super fat, then you may not understand what it's like to lose weight from that size, and it's just a little different, which we talk about on this channel, the ways in which it's a little different. It's a little harder. It's still attainable, but it's just a little harder, you know, and I've explained why in many videos on here, which I think I should just make a video just flat out saying how it's different, because I need to be more clear. I need to take my own advice, but I'm still, you know, theorizing and forming things, and we're going to get this together, you know. But anyways, let's continue. It becomes an object for public consumption and comment or ridicule. That's how everybody's body is. People always comment on other people's bodies. It doesn't matter how thin or fat you are. It doesn't even matter if you're a man or a woman. I do think it happens to women more, but it still happens to men. Everybody has their body talked about. Strangers feel obligated to tell you you're going to die early, or give diet tips, or scrutinize your every meal under the guise of patronizing concern for your health. Okay, like I said, everybody judges everybody's body. I don't know, people judge their outfits too. That seems to be important to you, since you mentioned the fashion show. Okay. Fat acceptance activists also want a world where people of size are on screen in narratives that don't center on their weight. Okay, so I guess another thing for fat acceptance. So one goal of fat acceptance that's clear, normalize obesity. And I think a part of normalizing obesity is they want fat people in movies. So this does explain, I've seen Professor Brain Fever. I've been watching the Hidden Channel. She's been covering his content. He is obsessed with movies. He is obsessed with fat people in movies. So this must be definitely a central tenet of fat acceptance. So it's normalize obesity and put fat people in movies. Okay. A study conducted by Dr. Stacey L. Smith and the Media Diversity and Social Change Initiative, blah, blah, found that of the top 100 films released in 2016, only 2 women larger than a size 14 were cast as a lead or co-lead. Of the top 50 TV shows in 2016, 43% of women characters were thin, and only 3 women leads were larger than a size 14. In a country where 67% of women are considered plus size, but that majority only represents 2% of images, it's crucial to have a movement that promotes fat inclusion and acceptance. So again, I don't think they understand that a lot of times with TV shows and movies, it's aspirational. It's supposed to be a sort of inflated form of reality. It's not supposed to dictate reality. If you want to see reality, go outside, touch some grass, talk to people. Movies are supposed to be exaggerated versions of reality to get a deeper message within that false story. That's what fiction is. This must be why fiction sucks, because a lot these days, because a lot of these people view it this way, I guess, that fiction should be reality even though it's not. I think if I'm watching a romantic movie, I want the people to be hot. I want the people to be very hot. I want the people to be like, I want to watch the guy and be like, oh my gosh, what if I could be with this guy? And, whatever. That's what you want to do. And if he's just like a whatever average guy that's not that attractive and is just like meh and nothing aspirational, then it's not really an inspiring movie. And again, it's like you might have a better time just go out living reality, because it's just kind of boring. And I don't think they understand that. So I think most of us understand that media is not supposed to be reality. They can't understand that. Okay. When fat people are unable to see themselves on screen and straight-sized people never see fat people on screen, it fuels the idea that only thin people are deserving of representation. Again, I don't think most people... I will just say, most people should not view TV and movies as reality. If you do, you need to get out more. And again, like, if this is what people view capitalism as, then I can understand the criticism, because that is ridiculous. You base your entire reality based on what a TV studio corporation tells you. Like, come on, you guys. We need to do better than that. That's just crazy. Start a business or something. Be more independent. This is craziness. Like, what the hell? Are you kidding me? Jeez. Anyways. That has a lingering impact on self-esteem. I do not get my self-esteem from television. I mean, holy crap. Is this really what they're advocating for? You get your self-esteem from a corporate message, from a corporate television show. That's where your self-esteem comes from? Are you kidding me? Wow. This is very interesting. Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. Like I said, I mean, if this is how it is in lefty spaces, I can understand the criticism of capitalism with this. This is way too much of a focus. This is insane. And of course, trickles down into how we interact with fat people in our lives. It shouldn't. You should have your own brain, and you should be a functioning human being where you actually think for yourself and you can tell the difference between the screen and reality. This is absolutely crazy. Is this how people really are? Let me know, you guys, in the comments below. I get that I'm introverted and stuff, but it's like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Like, why are people taking TV so seriously? Fat acceptance activists envision a world where children aren't bullied because of the size of their bodies. Okay, well, good luck with that. Kids are always bullied for any reason. It's an unachievable goal. In 2010, researchers at the University of Michigan released startling findings about how size intersects with childhood bullying. The researchers found 800 children in 10 cities across the United States and surveyed them, their teachers, and their mothers about the children's experiences with bullying. They found that kids who were obese were 65% more likely to be bullied than peers of normal weight. Overweight kids were 13% more likely to be bullied. In order to create an equitable world, again, there's the word again, for plus-size people, it has to begin in childhood. And that requires a confronting of how plus-size children are maligned because of their size. So again, what does this equitable mean here? Why use that word, and what does that mean? I think I don't even know. I don't know what they're trying to say there. So what does that mean? That's what we need to figure out. So I need to look into that deeper, because what does this mean? Is this emotional? Is this financial? Is this about outcomes? What is this? Right? Is You need to be clearer. That word, they throw that word around. So, like, equity has to do with finances. So, are you saying, like, people getting paid the same or something? It has to begin in childhood. Like, it's a weird word choice. And again, are we talking about something emotional or are we talking about something financial? Because they're not the same thing. I'm really seeing something here that I haven't seen before. I think a lot of these people, they equate emotions and money. It's really weird. Nowhere are these objectives rooted in glorifying obesity. Instead, fat acceptance activists want a different world where fat people can work, have relationships, be on screen, grow up safely, and simply exist without facing discrimination. Okay. Okay. Well, goal achieved. I've had a job. I've had many jobs, and I've been fat forever. So that's achieved. I have had relationships. They're not necessarily the healthiest or the most sane, but I am also gay, which is a... Not even going to get there. Not even going to go there on this one. But still have had them. Been on screen. I mean, I'm on YouTube right now. Is that a screen? Grow up safely. I mean, I'm alive. I don't know what that means. Again, safety is nice and wonderful, but it's not a reality for most people their whole lives at every moment. I mean, the world can be dangerous. So it's a little Pollyanna. And simply exist without facing discrimination. You need to define discrimination. Discrimination, usually, in my opinion, in these contexts, it has to do with the law. So I'm not sure if there's laws that only apply to fat people. I haven't seen it, and I'd love to see an example, which again, you could have provided, but you didn't. I've been considered overweight since I was 8, and unfortunately, I was surrounded by people who encouraged me to lose weight in order to gain dignity and respect. Okay, well, that's weird because, like I said, that comes from within. So you can't lose your weight into that. Like, it doesn't work that way. Just like you can't earn enough money to feel that way. It doesn't exist. It's more of a spiritual thing. So you can't lose weight to get that. That doesn't happen. The idea that I was worthless because of the size of my body seeped into every area of my life. I didn't wear a swimsuit on the beach until I was 20. Again, this is very superficial. This is not the give me liberty or give me death moment that you're thinking it is. This really isn't that big of a deal. It just really isn't. When I see this, I think, oh my gosh, what a petty person. This is so dumb. That's what goes through my head. It wasn't until I was 22 in graduate school and scouring the internet that I stumbled upon communities of fat acceptance bloggers and activists who developed better relationships with their bodies and were fighting for a more equitable world, a more communist world. You, dear teen reader, shouldn't have to wait that long. Interesting. Okay. You can become involved in the fat acceptance movement right now, and it really starts with you. Gosh, like, does this work on teens? Maybe I was just way too much of a bitch when I was a teenager. I think if I would have read this as a teen, I would have been like, what the hell is this? What are they even talking about? But I don't know. I guess it works on somebody. Let me know, you guys, if this ever worked on you. It's imperative that you find your voice and wield it as loudly as possible. Okay, I will. If you think you're being discriminated against because of your size, call it out. If you see your friends speaking negatively about someone's body because it's larger than theirs, call them out. A simple, that wasn't kind, you shouldn't talk about other people's bodies in that way will suffice. Well, shouldn't you have a reason? I mean, you can make an argument you shouldn't talk about anybody's body ever, but how realistic is that? Who doesn't? I don't know. People are going to just live. Again, maybe you need to get off of TV and live life a bit. It's so weird. If you go to the doctor for a sore throat and the doctor immediately tries to weigh you, don't be afraid to tell them you're uninterested in being weighed or knowing your weight at this time. If it's not a problem to be fat, then why would you care? It's like you guys expose yourselves so much. And most important, find friends who believe as you do. All bodies are good bodies, no matter their sizes, their shapes, their abilities, their ethnicities, or their genders. I don't know. I mean, like I said, if all bodies are good bodies, then no bodies are bad bodies. If all bodies are good bodies, then no bodies are good bodies. Like it becomes meaningless, which again, I don't think a body hierarchy is a good thing. I just don't think we should even talk about it this way. I wouldn't say all bodies are good bodies or all bodies are bad bodies or all bodies are this or that. I think it's just your body is your body and that is what it is, right? I think it's neutral. I think at the end of the day, our body is more morally neutral. And it's more so our character, our behavior, our, that kind of stuff that makes somebody a moral or an immoral person, not necessarily your body. But yes, I do think it's a virtue to take care of your body. But taking care of your body, you don't know where somebody is in their journey, right? Somebody could look at me now and say, oh my gosh, you're so fat. Wow, you're such a huge hog. They have no idea that I've lost 86 pounds. So while I do agree with not judging people all the time, I think it's just a waste of energy. And I think it's more important to focus on yourself. Like, I don't really focus that much right now, at least, on other people's diets or what they're doing as far as weight loss and stuff, because I have to put all my energy towards me. And that's really important to just keep that in perspective. And I think that's real. That would make more sense. But just blanket statement, all bodies are good bodies, I don't think it's helpful. It shuts down conversation, it shuts down understanding, and it's just a way to silence, in my opinion, which ultimately it just causes resentment and people to lie to you. I don't want people to lie to me. I don't want people to tell me that I'm attractive to them if I'm not. You know what I'm saying? It's just not it. That's cold. That's even worse in a lot of ways. So no. But at the same time, understand that most people are not constantly looking for feedback on their body unless if they're asking. So that I will say. And if they are like putting their body out there on social media or something, yes, that is asking. I don't do that on this channel. I don't. I'm not constantly posting fitness pics and my body. Like, I do show the weight loss factor, but as I've told you guys, my agenda is just to show that it's possible and to disprove fat acceptance narratives through a concrete physical example in real time. That's what I'm doing on this channel, which it's very hard for them to argue against. But that's why they would hate it if they see it. It's like really horrible for them to see. Anyways, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be affirmed by people who understand how crucial it is to love your body as it is. You don't need to be affirmed. It's nice to be affirmed, but you shouldn't need to be affirmed. You're not always going to be affirmed. You need to have something within. And if you don't, then you need to look inside of yourself. You need to reflect. I'm having to reflect now. Like, I've told you guys, I'm experiencing an identity crisis because I'm no longer ill. But I'm not looking towards you guys to tell me who I am. I'm looking within. I'm looking within and I'm looking to God. I'm not looking to you guys. You don't always have the support of other people. You can't base that stuff on other people. You just can't. It's not wise. Okay. Anyways. There's an entire history of people who've done exactly that and fought for the dignity of fat people. You can learn that history and then carry on that legacy. In fact, the movement has been waiting for you all along. Okay. So, very interesting. I am definitely going to be thinking about this more. I appreciate that this article exists because I feel like it does show more of like what is really going on here and what they're talking about. It's very confusing though. So I think what I've learned as well is that they don't know what they're talking about. Like, they don't have a clear message. The only real messages I got from this are to normalize obesity, which that's a huge one for us to pay attention to, and put fat people on screen. And then there's a lot of very strange conflation of material wealth and like self-esteem, which I find very interesting and totally alien to me. Let me know what you guys think about that. I really would love to hear your perspectives. But that's all I really got from this. Conflation of money and self-esteem, conflation or fat people on screen, and normalizing obesity. So let me know if you guys saw any other goals that I didn't notice. Um, I do think it's interesting how they have like these communist talking points mixed with these like extreme, you know, corporatistic, ultra capitalistic like talking points. Like they kind of mix it together. It's really fascinating to me. It's like the extremes. It's all extremes to me and no balance. So that's very interesting too. Let me know what you guys think about all this. I will talk to you guys again soon. Have a good rest of your day, night, whatever. Bye.